In this video, we're going to start looking at importing media into Flame and start to understand the media panel and the workflow. Now you can drag and drop files, your media, from Finder and just drop them into Flame to import them. For example, let me bring up Finder, and here we are looking at my attached storage, my Promise Pegasus 2. Also notice there's a folder called Autodesk Media Storage. This is that folder that was created when you installed Flame. This is where all your intermediates are going to go, all your pre-renders, different things that you process while you're working inside the program. That's the folder it's going to go to. But right below that, I have a folder that I have named Media. And in there, I have another folder called Flame 101 Compositing Videos. If I expand this, you're going to see a whole bunch of files. These are all the files that we're going to use during these videos. So as I said, yes, I can drag and drop files directly from Finder into Flame to import them. So for example, let's take, I think it's 45 frames right here. So I got my 45 frames from my DPX sequence selected. I pick it up, I drag and drop it onto Flame, and then we go to Flame and it's going to import that. Those files are now been brought in. But I want to focus on the Media Hub in this video and explain why it's a benefit or why you would want to use the Media Hub. So I'm going to right click over this clip and just choose delete to get rid of it. So the Media Hub, spacebar F1, think of the Media Hub as a Finder or any file system browser you might use on any OS to access the media you want to import. But there are a ton of different tools and features you can use in Media Hub to customize the media to be exactly as you want and need it for your project. So just like in Finder, there is my Pegasus 2, so I double click on that, and there's the same folder we went to before, and then I'll double click on the Flame 101 Compositing Videos. The first thing you're going to notice is you get these nice thumbnails of all the media. You can select the thumbnail, you can scrub the thumbnail, you can play back the thumbnail in the preview window. So over here in the lower right corner, midway, you'll see it says preview. I click on that and this preview window opens. And now as I select any one of the media sources in here, the files, it's going to be the currently selected media source in the preview window. And just for reference, if you don't want to use the preview button over here, you can just double click on any of your media files, such as this one here, and it will open up the preview window with that clip as the selected clip. Also next to that preview window, you have the option of controlling the size of your thumbnails. You can switch from thumbnail to list, and then you can also change the size of the actual thumbnails. You can choose none if you don't want to have any, or you can choose small, medium, or large. I'm going to leave it at small, the default, and I'll switch back to looking at our tiles, our thumbnails. But this is why I was saying I love using the Media Hub to import my media. I know exactly what I'm bringing in. Furthermore, with a clip selected, not only do I have this preview window where I can play this back and preview it, I get all this clip info and metadata about this file. It tells me what format the file is, the resolution, the frame rate, all this information, and like I said, the metadata, which is really handy, especially working with RED and ARRI files. For example, there's two clips there that look like they're the same clip, but if I select this one here, the first one, you'll see that it is a QuickTime file. And then I select this one, you'll see that it's a DPX file. So I know I want to bring in the raw DPX file and not the QuickTime file. This is just one of the benefits of using the Media Hub. And if you want to play back this clip full resolution, you can click this little button right here, and that opens it up, and now I can hit this play button, and I can play this clip back in full resolution. Hit the escape key, or this little button down here, and you'll go back to the normal size for your preview window. Also, you can decide what frames of a source clip you want to import when you bring it to Flame. You have the ability to set in and out marks prior to even importing it, and then you would only bring in those specific frames. Looking down at the editing panel, you'll see we have several different tabs relevant to importing media and exporting media and so on. On the General tab, we've got several different options as to how to treat the media during the import process. The first option we'll talk about are the clip options, and there's the cache option. If you enable this, what's going to happen now is you're going to create intermediates based on, remember the setting, the format we chose In the project setup dialog box, the Apple ProRes 422HQ, it's going to generate a new file and store it in our media storage when I import this. And that as I'm working in Flame, I'm going to be using that cached intermediate, not the actual linked file on my drive. And then there's the proxy option. Do you want to automatically generate proxies? Again, based on your settings in the Create Project dialog box. I'm going to leave both of them disabled. We're going to link directly to the raw material, the raw media on my drive. Moving over, we have the ability to change what the resolution is going to be once the file is imported. So, as we know, this is 1920 by 1080. Let's say I'm working in a project that is not 1920 by 1080, and I want to convert the actual file during the media process. I can click on where it reads same as source and choose any one of these presets or custom if needed to. I'll choose 720 HD, the 1280 by 720, and immediately you're going to notice all my media just flickered for a second, and look at the detail, look at the clip info. It's now telling me the resolution of the clip I'm about to bring in is now 1280 by 720. It's no longer the 1080. And then back by resolution, you've got the custom settings, you've got the different quality settings you can choose from, and so on. But if you want to import the media as its original size, always just set this to be same as source, and then your file, once imported, will be exactly the same size as it is originally. You also have your bit depth, you have your scan mode, you've got your pixel ratio, you've got the duration, lots of different information we can control during the import process. There's also the color management settings. And again, as I said earlier, we can spend hours discussing the color science here, but we're not going to go into that. I'm going to leave this set to from file or rule so that it remains the same color science and color space that this original file is. Moving on to the format specific tab. Here is where you're going to set up rules or filtering based on what type of file it is. What is the format? So I have this clip selected right now, and it's telling me it is a DPX file. And then below it, you have a flyout to access different things you can control and change during the import process. Metadata is one of them. If I switch over to clip option, I have clip name options. I also have the sequence detection. This is handy if you want to import individual frames of a sequence. We know that this is a DPX sequence, and all the frames are being read as a sequence. But if I click on this and switch this to frames, give it a second, and now you'll see that Flame is going to recognize each individual frame of the actual DPX. So maybe I want to import just one frame. I could do that. But we don't want to do that. I'm going to select my DPX, one of the frames, go back here and switch this to sequence once again to recognize this as a sequence. I can go from clip option, jump over to key code, and now I have my key code options. And these options that you see here are going to change depending upon the format that you select. For example, if I select the QuickTime version of that same clip, you'll see it reads QuickTime, and I get the metadata, which is similar to what we just saw with the DPX. But if I click on the expansion, I click Clip Options, obviously I'm not going to have the ability to import individual frames of a QuickTime, but I go to my image, I now have specific options for QuickTime files. And notice that you have the load and the save button over here. So you can create a setting for all QuickTime files and then load it every time you need to. If I come back over to the left-hand side and I click Show All Formats, now when I click on where it reads QuickTime, it shows me all the different file formats that we can bring into Flame. If I switch to Area Raw, I'm going to get different options for the Area Raw files, such as deburring, color, resolution. And if I change something in here and I want to save it, I could save it. That would then be saved into one of those subdirectories that I showed you a while ago that Flame created when we created this project. When you turn off Show All Formats, that is when Flame will automatically recognize what format you are selecting and then give you the different format specific options relevant to that format. I'm going to make sure I have my DPX version of this file selected, and now we'll start to import our media. Now, we have not spent a lot of time discussing the reels and the media panel and the library and so on, but this is where we're going to start getting into that. The key part about import is When I click this import button down here, whatever file or files I have selected in the Media Hub will then be imported into whatever entity of my workspace I have selected. Right now you see I have Reel 1 selected. Well, for demonstration, let me just click on Reel 4. So that is now what is selected. And I've got my DPX sequence selected. I'll click on the import button down here, and that file is now imported and placed onto that reel. Because I do not have cached on, I just want to reiterate this, we are linking to the media that is on my storage. I did not create intermediates that I would be using while working the flame. Okay, let's go back to importing more media. So this time I'm going to select this clip, I'll pick it up and drag and drop it onto reel number 2. So now I've just imported that file, a link of the original file, inside of my project on reel 2. And then we'll take this clip right here and I'll drag and drop that onto reel number 1. So I've got 3 different clips imported, placed on 3 different reels. Just to clean things up, I'm going to click the little triangle next to batch group and hide that or collapse that. And I want to focus now on my library. We've not put anything into the default library yet. I've not imported anything. I've imported files and put them onto my desktop inside the reels. And I'm going to explain the difference in just a couple of minutes. But I just want you to understand that when I drag those files, import those files into my reel, they are not in my default library yet. I'm going to click on my default library to select it. And then I'll come back and I'll select this clip, the DPX file that I've already dragged in reel 4, but I've got it separate now. I'm going to import another version of it. And then I'm just going to hold the Shift key and I'll select the bottom clip here. So I've got these 5 clips selected. The default library is highlighted or selected. I choose import, or I could have dragged those files into the library and now they are imported into my library. Now let's go back to our Tools tab, and then in the next video, we're going to start discussing exactly what are the reels and the batch groups and the libraries.